Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jared Rand, and welcome to the Global Guided Meditation Call for Monday, October 31st, 2022, after 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll be having a time for change call on Wednesday of this week at 9 p.m. Eastern. Every one of us deserves to be free. This means being free on an emotional, social, physical, mental, spiritual level, and a financial level. It is our natural birthright to live an abundant life where we feel rich, supported by this amazing universe. If we are choosing to participate in the monetary society, then learning how to feel and act abundant truly is the best way to be. I welcome everyone to relax and drop into deeper layers of relaxation about your financial situation in this very moment. Abundance, like everything, comes from the God source, which is always connected to all of us. The real question is, are you allowing a constant flow of this divine energy of abundance into your body every day? Are you feeling like the universe is magical and will always provide your every desired need? If not, your ego will choose a life of hard work to survive. It will struggle to achieve a life of financial abundance, yet not actually feel the joy, ease, and fun that is available every day along the way. Have you ever wondered why some people tend to be relaxed and have no issues with money, while others work like slaves around the clock and barely make their rent each month? The big difference between these two types of people is in their relationship with money. You know, a lot of people have this perspective, this understanding that money is the root of all evil. That's a horrible relationship with money, and they never end up with any. Now, their attitude towards money is either coming from grace and gratitude or from need and greed. We are either coming from appreciation or a complaint towards money. If we really take a closer look, we can see it showing up in every second of our lives, unless, of course, we have found the third side of the coin. Our financial frequency changes from moment to moment depending on the monetary beliefs we entertain to be true. Our energy field vibrates higher whenever we think about, feel about, and consistently interact with money as if it were an infinite supply. Just notice what happens to your emotional body when you start thinking that it is an infinite supply. How do you honestly feel? Now think about your current financial situation. Do you feel relaxed about it, or are you coming from fear? On a scale of 1 to 100, 100 is the most amount of peace, trust, relaxation you can feel about your current financial situation. Where are you right now? Where are you? What are you doing to improve this frequency this week? How we deal with money, how we dealt with the money last week, is most likely or like how we will relate to it next week. This relationship is a habit that we've unconsciously cultivated over time. Our typical monthly financial situation is a good representation of the beliefs that we hold on to around money. It also shows where we've been focusing our attention and financial intention. Positive news is if you don't like your current situation, you can be shifted in a matter of minutes. Now, I'll share 3 frequencies, 3 instigators that will literally allow you to step out of poverty consciousness and increase your financial frequency instantly. It is not only my right and my privilege to walk in the abundance God has for me. It is my responsibility, just as it is my responsibility to live my truth. Jan Denise. Every day, consciously send out the signal of abundance. Your body's like a powerful radio tower. Notice what signals, ideas, feelings you're currently sending out about your future financial situation. Your thoughts are like boomerangs and return to you whatever you're sending out. Always feel what your body is saying and what your head is saying about money. Does your heart have a different story to tell? Get clear on what these three areas of your body are sending out as a signal about your financial future. Next, imagine how you'd feel right now if the past 10 years of your life you were worth $1 billion. How relaxed and excited would you feel inside about money? Hold on to this feeling as long as you can and push it out like a massive long-distance radio wave into the universe. Send out the signal that is feeling your new energetic commitment and relationship feeling to money. How you feel and think about anything is how the world is formed around you. We are all a manifesting machine. And so whatever energy we are vibrating with is what is attracted to us. So it's a choice. You take the big plunge right now and commit to sending out this trusting feeling, abundant energy every day of your life. Connect with the feeling of infinity. The next step for increasing your financial frequency is to practice relaxing deeper and deeper, higher and higher into this awesome connection. Practice knowing, feeling, believing that you are truly a naturally abundant being because you will always be connected to the God source. And this is the infinite source of energy, love, and divine intelligence is our very nature. If it chooses to believe it is poor, then that is what it will manifest. And if it chooses to believe it's abundant, then the universe will mirror that as well. Turning up your financial frequency is all about grounding that billion-dollar feeling into your body by honoring and merging with the highest spiritual source within you. This can all be done by letting go of trying to achieve anything in life and quiet all that mind chatter inside. Drop down into your heart. Bring all your attention to the innermost core of who we all are. Discover your essence, your beingness, that divine consciousness, who you actually are. The source is where the realm of unlimited possibilities, energy, and divine creativity is born. It is not far away at all. It simply shows up when you bring the mind into the silence of the heart. Take inspired, abundant actions all the time, daily. And the last secret may seem obvious, yet the actualization of it is often overlooked. When we think like we are financially free, feel like we are connected to the infinite source, then we will naturally take actions out in the world from this inspired, abundant mindset. Our financial situation has to mirror that which we truly feel and believe within. If there is a fraction of fear, then we will be tested on how trusting and confident we are to transcend this fear. The money we need and want to materialize has to manifest when we are without any fear. When we trust 100% that the universe is supporting our every wish, desire, and need, it has no choice but to manifest for us. Financial freedom comes to those who choose it daily. It's really as simple as that. When you shift your financial mindset and completely devote your heart to operating in an abundant paradigm, this universe has to match and mirror abundance back to you in some form. Like attracts like. The billionaire mindset is truly worry-free and yet isn't greedy with needing more money. The billionaire, millionaire, billionaire, trillionaire mindset is truly worry-free and yet isn't greedy with needing more money. It has enough. And from its standpoint, it's all about letting it flow. Sending out this generosity signal into the universe will eventually result in physical manifestation of abundance that we're all seeking. Trust the transition and listen to your body, as the body never lies. Everything that we are is connected to gratitude. And this society, what the society does is it influences us, it pressures us, it structures us, it directs us. It actually lays out an illusion of the life we're supposed to have. And the life we're supposed to have is filled with all kinds of challenges, miseries and suffering, disappointment, anger, hatred, greed, manipulation, dishonesty. And there are good things, not to say there aren't, but they're not prevalent. And in our natural state of being, good things are prevalent. In fact, they're front and center all the time. And the mindset through the ego mind of this civilization with the structure of society, the society, actually forms opinions, perspectives, attitudes for everyone. And those are false. But we live by them. The doubt, the insecurity, the anxiety, the fear, the stress is generated through the ego mind, from the ego mind. The ego mind dictates to the heart mind. And when that happens, we don't think about it. It's not like we're going, oh, wait, I'm going over here. It's automatic. We do it because we believe that's the way. And as we know, many on this planet rely on others doing things for them, thinking for them, deciding for them. And many get into the habit that they like that. That's a good thing for them because they don't really, they don't take responsibility for themselves in their lives. They rely on others to do that for them. This is why the planet, the civilization, is so scattered and confused. It's not a bad thing either. It's an experience. So we experience, and then we begin to progress by saying, okay, I'm going to change some things. Because by going within, you start to discover that the ego mind is an illusion, and it isn't your master as you allowed it to be up until the point where you discover, by going within, who and what you are. When we come into these bodies, there's all kinds of bells and whistles, right? But it's interesting because as we come into these baby bodies, they haven't been programmed. They're clean as a whistle. No influences, no society, nothing. Just absolute pristineness. No fear, no worry, no stress, no anxiety, nothing. And society programs that in us. And it's done through the ego mind being the master. And it's the root of this civilization and why this civilization has such difficulties. Now understand that, like, meditation is nothing but a device. Meditation is nothing but a device to make us aware of our real selves, which is not created by us, which need not be created by us, because which we already are. We're born with it. We are it. And it needs to be discovered. Now, if this is not possible, or if the society does not allow it to happen, and no society allows it to happen, because the real self is dangerous. It is dangerous for the established church, dangerous for the state, dangerous for the crowd, dangerous for the tradition. Because once a man knows his real self, he becomes an individual. He no longer belongs to the mob psychology. He will not be superstitious. He cannot be exploited, and he cannot be led like cattle, and he cannot be ordered and commanded. He will live according to his light. He will live from his own inwardness. His life will have tremendous beauty and integrity. Meditation helps us to grow our own intuitive faculty. It becomes very clear what is going to fulfill us, what is going to help us flower. And whatever it is it going to be different for each individual? That is the meaning of the word individual. Everybody is unique, and to seek and search for your uniqueness is a great thrill, a great adventure. We always experience on this planet, this civilization throughout the ages, this thought, and it's a thought, that's all it is, has no power, has no impact, just a thought. So the thought, we take this thought, we give it a definition, we give it a word, right? We label it. And then we take that thought, we move it with energy, we create it into reality, and then we experience it. And the main thing, the main one is fear. We fear love, right? We fear hate, we fear love. It's just about fearing everything. It's kind of like an unknown. Why is the civilization of planet Earth so afraid of love? Why is the civilization of planet Earth, the humanity, mankind, civilization, so afraid of love? Love always creates fear because love is death, a greater death than the ordinary death that we know of. In an ordinary death, the body dies, but that is not death at all. The body is just like clothing. When it is tatty and old, you change for a new one. It is not death, it is just a change of clothes, or a change of a house or abode. But you continue. The mind continues. Just the same old mind and new bodies. Just the same old wine and new bottles. The form changes, but not the mind. The shape changes, but not the mind. See, the ordinary death is not a real death. Love is a real death. The body does not die, but the mind dies. The body continues to be the same, but the ego disappears. If you love, you will have to drop all the conceptions that you have about yourself. If you love, you cannot be the ego, because the ego will not allow love. They are antagonistic. If you choose the ego, you will not be able to choose love. If you choose love, you will have to drop the ego, hence the fear. A greater fear than death grips you whenever you are in love. That's why love has disappeared from this world. Rarely, very rarely does the phenomenon happen that love descends. What you call love is just a false coin. We have invented it because it is so difficult to live without love. It is difficult because without love, life carries no meaning. It is meaningless. Without love, life has no poetry in it. Without love, the tree exists but never flowers. Without love, you cannot dance. You cannot celebrate. You cannot feel grateful. You cannot pray. Without love, temples are just ordinary houses. With love, an ordinary house is transformed, transfigured into a temple. Without love, you remain just possibilities, empty gestures. With love, for the first time, you become substantial. With love, for the first time, the soul arises in you. The ego drops, but the soul arises. It is impossible to live without love. So humanity has created a trick. Humanity has invented a trick, a device. The device is to live in a false love so that the ego continues on its own. Nothing has changed, and you can play the game of being in love. You can go on thinking that you love. You can go on believing that you love. But look at your love. What happens out of it? Nothing except misery, nothing except hell, nothing except conflict, quarrel, violence. Look deeply into your love relationships. They are more skin or akin to hate relationships than to love. It is better to call them hate relationships than to call them love relationships, because everybody is living in the same way. We never become aware. Everybody is carrying the false coin. We never become aware. The real coin of love is very costly. You can purchase it only at the cost of losing yourself. There's no other way. So the question is perfectly relevant. The ego is a false entity, just a notion, cloud in the sky of your being, just smoke, nothing substantial, a dream. Love requires you to drop that which you don't have, and love is ready to give you that which you have and have always had. Love gives you yourself back. The ego goes on hiding you from yourself. Love reveals you to yourself. But the fear is there. Fear is natural, and one has to go in spite of the fear. Be courageous. Don't be cowards. The real metal of our being is tested only when love arises. Never before it do we know of what metal we are made. In ordinary life, in the marketplace, doing this and that, in the world of ambition and power politics, your real metal is never really tested. You never pass through the fire. Love is the fire. Questions always comes up, one in particular, why is love so painful? Love is painful because it creates the way for bliss. Love is painful because it creates the way for bliss. Love is painful because it transforms. Love is mutation. Each transformation is going to be painful because the old has to be left for the new. The old is familiar, secure, safe. The new is absolutely unknown. You will be moving in an uncharted ocean. You cannot use your mind with the new, with the old. The mind is skillful. The mind can function only with the old. With the new, the mind is utterly useless. Hence, fear arises. And leaving the old, comfortable, safe world, the world of convenience, pain arises. It is the same pain that the child feels when he comes out of the womb of the mother. It is the same pain that the bird feels when he comes out of the egg. It is the same pain that the bird will feel when he tries for the first time to be on the wing. The fear of the unknown and the security of the known, the insecurity of the unknown, the unpredictability of the unknown makes one very much frightened. And because the transformation is going to be from the self toward a state of no self, the agony is very deep. But you cannot have ecstasy without going through agony. If the gold wants to be purified, it has to pass through the fire. Love is fire. It is because of the pain of love that millions of people live a loveless life. They too suffer, and their suffering is futile. To suffer in love is not to suffer in vain. To suffer in love is creative. It takes us to a higher level of consciousness. To suffer without love is utterly a waste. It leads us nowhere. It keeps us moving in the same vicious circle. The man who is without love is narcissistic. He is closed. He knows only himself. And how much can he know himself if he has not known the other? Because only the other can function as a mirror. You will never know yourself without knowing the other. Love is fundamental for self-knowledge. The person who has not known the other in deep love, in intense passion, in utter ecstasy, will not be able to know who he is or who she is. Because he will not have the mirror to see his own reflection. Relationship is a mirror. And the purer the love is, the higher the love is, the better the mirror, the cleaner the mirror. But the higher love needs you to be open. The higher love needs you to be vulnerable. You have to drop your arm. That is painful. You have not to be constantly on guard. You have to drop the calculating mind. You have to risk. You have to live dangerously. The other can hurt you. That is the fear in being vulnerable. The other can reject you. That is the fear in being in love. The reflection that you will find in the other of your own self may be ugly. That is the anxiety. Avoid the mirror, but by avoiding the mirror, you are not going to become beautiful. By avoiding the situation, you are not going to grow either. The challenge has to be taken. One has to go into love. That is the first step toward the divine. And it cannot be bypassed. Those who try to bypass the step of love will never reach the divine. It is absolutely necessary, because we become aware of our totality only when we are provoked by the presence of the other. When your presence is enhanced by the presence of the other, when you are brought out of your narcissistic, closed world under the open sky. Love is an open sky. To be in love is to be on the wing. But certainly, the unbounded sky creates fear. And to drop the ego is very painful, because we have been taught to cultivate the ego. We think the ego is our only treasure. We have been protecting it. We have been decorating it. We have been continuously polishing it. And when love knocks on the door, all that is needed to fall in love is to put aside the ego. Certainly it is painful. It is your whole life's work. It is all that you have created. This ugly ego. This idea that I am separate from existence. This idea is ugly because it is untrue. This idea is illusory. But our society exists, is based on this idea that each person is a person, not a presence. Each person is a person and not a presence. The truth is that there is no person at all in this world. There is only presence. You are not as an ego, separate from the whole. You are part of the whole. The whole penetrates you. The whole breathes in you, pulsates in you. The world is your life. Love gives you the first experience of being in tune with something that is not your ego. Love gives you the first lesson that you can fall into harmony with someone who has never been part of your ego. If you can be in harmony with a woman, if you can be in harmony with a friend, with a man, if you can be in harmony with your child or with your mother, why can't you be in harmony with all human beings? And if to be in harmony with a single person gives such joy, what will be the outcome if you are in harmony with all human beings? And if you can be in harmony with all human beings, why can't you be in harmony with animals and birds and trees? And then one step leads to another. Love is a ladder. It starts with one person. It ends with the totality. Love is the beginning. Godliness is the end. To be afraid of love, to be afraid of growing pains of love, is to remain enclosed in a dark cell. Modern man is living in a dark cell. It is narcissistic. Narcissism is the greatest obsession of the modern mind. And then there are problems. Problems which are meaningless. There are problems which are creative because they lead you to higher awareness. There are problems which lead you nowhere. They simply keep you tethered. They simply keep you in your old mess. Love creates problems. You can avoid those problems by avoiding love. But those are very essential problems. They have to be faced, encountered. They have to be lived and gone through and gone beyond. And to go beyond, the way is through. Love is the only real thing worth doing. All else is secondary. If it helps love, it is good. All else is just a means. Love is the end. So whatever the pain, go into love. If you don't go into love, as many people have decided on this planet, then you are stuck with yourself. Then your life is not a pilgrimage. Then your life is not a river going to the ocean. Your life is a stagnant pool, dirty, and soon there will be nothing but dirt and mud. To keep clean, one needs to keep flowing. A river remains clean because it goes on flowing. Flow is the process of remaining continuously virgin. A lover remains a virgin. All lovers are virgins. The people who don't love cannot remain virgin. They become dormant and stagnant. They start stinking sooner or later, and sooner than later, because they have nowhere to go. Their life is dead. That's where modern man finds himself. And because of this, all kinds of neurosis, all kinds of madnesses have become rampant. Psychological illness has taken epidemic proportions. It is no longer that a few individuals are psychologically ill. The reality is the whole earth has become a madhouse. The whole of humanity is suffering from a kind of neurosis. And that neurosis is coming from your narcissistic stagnancy. Everyone is stuck with one's own illusion of having a separate life. Then people go mad. And this madness is meaningless, unproductive, uncreative. Or people start committing suicide. Those suicides are also unproductive and uncreative. You may not commit suicide by taking poison or jumping from a cliff or by shooting yourself. But you can commit a suicide, which is a very slow process. And that's what happened. Very few people commit suicide suddenly. Others have decided for a slow suicide, gradually, slowly and slowly they die. But the tendency to be suicidal has almost become universal. This is no way to live. And the reason, the fundamental reason, is we have forgotten the language of love. We are no longer courageous enough to go into the adventure called love. Hence, people are interested in sex because sex is not risky. It is momentary. You don't get involved. Love is involvement. It is commitment. It is devotion. It is not momentary. Once it takes roots, it can be forever. It can be a lifetime involvement. Love needs intimacy. And only when you are intimate does the other become a mirror. When you meet sexually with a woman or a man, you have not met at all. In fact, you avoided the soul of the other person. You just used the body and escaped. And the other used your body and escaped. You never became intimate enough to reveal each other's original faces. Love is the greatest Zen koan. It is painful, but don't avoid it. If you avoid it, you have avoided the greatest opportunity to grow. Go into it. Suffer. Love. Because through the suffering comes great ecstasy. And yes, there is agony, but out of the agony, ecstasy is born. Now, a lot of people get things mixed up, which isn't, it's not hard to do. What is the difference between a healthy love of oneself and an egotistical pride? What is the difference between a healthy love of oneself and egotistical pride? There's a great difference between those two. Oh, they look very alike. The healthy love of oneself is a great original religious value. The person who does not love himself will not be able to love anybody else ever. Ever, ever. The first ripple of love has to rise in your heart. If it has not risen for yourself, it cannot rise for anybody else, because everybody else is farther away from you. It is like throwing a stone into the silent lake. First ripples will rise around the stone, and then they will go on spreading to the further shores. The first ripple of love has to be around yourself. One has to love one's body. One has to love one's soul. One has to love one's totality. And this is natural. Otherwise, we would not be able to survive at all. It is beautiful because it beautifies us. The person who loves himself becomes graceful, elegant. The person who loves himself is bound to become more silent, more meditative, more prayerful than the person who does not love himself. If you don't love your house, you will not clean it. If you don't love your house, you will not paint it. If you don't love, you will not surround it with a beautiful garden, with a lotus pond. If you love yourself, you will create a garden around yourself. You will try to grow your potential. You will try to bring out all that is in you to be expressed. If you love, you will go on showering yourself. You will go on nourishing yourself. And if you love yourself, you will be surprised. Others will love you. Nobody loves a person who does not love themselves. If you cannot even love yourself, who else is going to take the trouble? And the person who does not love themselves cannot remain neutral. Remember, in life there is no neutrality. The man who does not love himself hates. Will have to hate. Life knows no neutrality. Life is always a choice. If you don't have that, does not mean that you can simply remain in that not loving state. Nope. You will hate. And the person who hates himself becomes destructive. And the person who hates himself will hate everybody else. He will be so angry and violent and continuously enraged. How can the person who hates himself hope that others will love him? His whole life will be destroyed. To love oneself is a great religious value. One of the biggest challenges on this planet for us is to become egoless. Now, a lot of people speak about dropping the ego. But how can one do so when they can't distinguish between the ego and their true nature? The ego cannot be dropped. It is just like darkness. You cannot drop darkness. You can only bring light in. The moment light is, darkness is no more. You can say this is how to drop darkness, but you don't take it literally. Darkness does not exist at all. It is the absence of light. Hence, you cannot do anything directly to it. You can only do something to light. Either bring light in or take light out. If you want darkness, put the light off. If you don't want darkness, put the light on. The ego cannot be dropped. Meditation can be learned. And meditation functions as a light. Meditation is light. Become light. And you will not find the ego anywhere. Become light and you will not find the ego anywhere. If you want to drop it, you will be in trouble, because who is this one who wants to drop it? Is it the ego itself, now playing a new game, the game called spirituality, religion, self-realization? Who is asking this question? It is the ego itself, befooling you. And when the ego asks how the ego can be dropped, naturally you think, this can't be the ego. How can ego ask for its own suicide? That's how the ego goes on deceiving us all. Our self-nature has no questions. It needs no answers. Our self-nature is absolutely light, full of light. It knows no darkness. It has never met any darkness. We need not drop the ego. Just look in. Search for where it is. First, find it. Don't worry about self-nature right now. Just go in. Search for the ego, and you will not find it. Instead, you will find your self-nature, luminous, fragrant like a lotus flower. One never comes across such beauty anywhere else. It is the most beautiful experience of life. And once you have seen your own lotus of light, your own lotus blossoming, the ego, well, it's finished forever. Then you will not ask such meaningless questions. How to distinguish between the ego and our true nature? Either the ego is there, then the true nature is not known, or the true nature is known, then there is no ego left. You cannot have both. Hence, you cannot make any distinction. You cannot distinguish them. They can't both be present together. Only one can be present. Right now, whatever you are is ego. So don't be worried about distinguishing. If there was no ego, the question would not have arisen at all. Self-nature knows no question. Self-nature is ecstasy, not a problem. Many people have become resigned to life through enduring its difficulties. But what happens is, this begins to prevent them from being really alive. And then they wonder, well, I have to find my ego again before I can lose it. This is one of the greatest problems of mankind. It will appear very paradoxical, but this is true. Before you can lose your ego, you must attain it. Only a ripe fruit falls to the ground. Ripeness is all. An unripe ego cannot be thrown, cannot be destroyed. And if you struggle with an unripe ego to destroy, dissolve it, then the whole effort is going to be a failure. Rather than destroying it, you will find it more strengthened in new, subtle ways. This is something basic to be understood. The ego must come to a peak. It must be strong. It must have attained an integrity. Only then can you dissolve it. A weak ego cannot be dissolved. And this is because, and it becomes a problem. In the East, all the religions preach egolessness, right? So in the East, everybody is against the ego from the very beginning. Because of this anti-attitude, the ego never becomes strong, never comes to a point of integration from where it can be thrown. It is never right. So in the East, it is very difficult to dissolve the ego, almost impossible. In the West, the whole Western tradition of religion and psychology propounds, preaches, persuades people to have strong egos. Because unless you have a strong ego, how can you survive? Life is a struggle. If you are egoless, you will be destroyed. Then who will resist? Who will fight? Who will compete? And life is a continuous competition. Western psychology says to attain the ego, be strong in it. But in the West, it is very easy to dissolve the ego. So whenever a Western seeker reaches to an understanding that the ego is the problem, he can easily dissolve it, more easily than the Eastern seeker. This is the paradox. In the West, the ego is taught. In the East, egolessness is taught. But in the West, it is easy to dissolve the ego. And in the East, it is very difficult. This is going to be a hard task for anyone. First to attain, then to lose. Because you can lose something which you possess. If you don't possess it, how can you lose it? You can be poor only if you are rich. If you're not rich, your poverty cannot have that beauty which is preached about. Be poor in spirit. Your poverty cannot have that significance which Gautam Buddha has when he becomes a beggar. When Buddha comes down from his throne, becomes a beggar, what is the necessity for Buddha? He was a king, enthroned at the peak of his ego. Why this extreme, moving down from his palace to the streets, becoming a beggar? But Buddha has a beauty in his begging. The earth has never known such a beautiful beggar, such a rich beggar, such a kingly beggar, such an emperor. What happened when he stepped down from his throne? He stepped down from his ego. Thrones are nothing but symbols, symbols of the ego, of power, of prestige, status. He stepped down and then egolessness happened. This egolessness is not humbleness. This egolessness is not humility. You may find many humble people, but under their humility, subtle egos are functioning. It is said that once Diogenes came to visit Socrates. He lived like a beggar. He always wore dirty clothes with many patches and holes. Even if you presented him with new clothes, he would not use them. First, he would make them dirty, old, torn, and then he would use them. He came to visit Socrates, and he started talking about egolessness. But Socrates, penetrating eyes, must have come to realize that this man was not an egoless man. The way he was talking about humility was very egotistic. Socrates is reported to have said, through your dirty clothes, through the holes in your clothes, I cannot see anything else but the ego. You talk of humility, but that ego comes from a deep center. That talk comes from a deep center of the ego. This will happen. This is how hypocrisy happens. You have an ego, you hide it through the opposite, you become humble on the surface. This surface humbleness cannot deceive anyone. It may deceive you, but it cannot deceive anyone else. From the holes of the dirty clothes, your ego goes on peeping. It is always there. This is a self-deception and nothing more. Nobody else is deceived. This happens if you start throwing the unripe ego. Contradiction is inherent in this life. I'll join you in the meditation, and I'll return to close us out. Take an easy and slow breath in through the nose, and an easy and slow breath out from the mouth. Be still. Your real power in this life doesn't come from money, prestige, material luxuries, or physical strength. These things can all be taken away from you. True power comes from that which is permanent. It is found by discovering that one thing that cannot change or be destroyed. Your assignment for today is to focus on that one thing which does not change or die in this life or any life. It is not far away. In fact, it's closer to you than your next thought. By accessing your real power, you are no longer a victim to issues from your past or trying to manage who you will become in the future. To find your real source of power, look inward to where the source of your consciousness is coming from. This subtle, energetic fountain of bliss is who you are. Take this precious day today. Explore who and what you truly are. Pay close attention to this infinite stream of consciousness and surrender to the flow of its permanent and unchanging awareness all day long. Take this with you for the rest of the day, into the evening and night, and into the following morning. And we will return here Tuesday, November 1st, 2022, 3 p.m. Eastern, to continue our global guided meditation call.